Have you ever wondered where ESG data actually comes from? I mean, really, have you ever stopped and thought about it? If you're someone trying to enter into the ESG field, sustainability field, or maybe already working into sustainability, you might have probably felt this confusion. You see companies publishing glossy ESG reports. You hear big sustainability teams a company has. You see expensive ESG software the company is using. And then you think, if everything is so advanced, why is ESG reporting still so difficult? And here's the part that surpasses most people, friends, even those already working in the field. I mean, the ESG data analysts, the people who are responsible for turning sustainability into numbers, spend around 60 to 70% of their time not analyzing the data only, but simply collecting it, cleaning it, validating it, chasing teams, different teams across the departments for inputs and fixing inconsistencies. I mean, the inconsistent data. If you ever felt frustrated trying to understand ESG data, trust me friends, you are not alone. Every beginner goes through this. Every ESG data analyst struggles with this. Every company faces this challenge on the data. And here's the part nobody tells the beginners. ESG data isn't like a financial data. It isn't centralized data. It isn't in a standard format, friends. It is not like neatly stored in one system. In fact, and this is the real truth, ESG data comes from everywhere. It comes from different departments, different tools, different formats, and different level of accuracy. Different people with different priorities. Some data you will find automated, some will be manual, some will be measured, and some data is estimated. Some data will be reliable and some data will not be reliable, friends. And before an ESG analyst can calculate emissions, build dashboards, or prepare reports, they must first navigate this maze of scattered information and turn into something meaningful, comparable, and audit ready. This is the hidden reality of ESG work, friends. The part that decides whether a company's ESG report is credible or questionable, whether the report is trusted or is bound to get rejected, whether it is compliant or non-compliant. And if you're learning ESG right now, understand this reality is the first step to becoming a strong, confident ESG data analyst, friends. So ESG or sustainability data is scattered across the entire organization, friends. Like energy data, it will come from facility and operations team. Water related data will come from utilities and maintenance team. Waste generation or waste related data will come from the manufacturing team, production team. GHG emissions data will come from the engineering or sustainability team. HR data, HR metrics kind of data will come from people and culture. Safety data will come from EHS department. Financial ESG metrics kind of data will come from the accounts and finance team. Governance indicators kind of data will come from the compliance team, legal team in the company. Supplier sustainability data will come from the procurement team. So there are different departments, different systems, different formats, and different level of accuracy. And this is why ESG reporting feels chaotic and why data analysts or ESG data analysts are so important in any organization or as a consultant, friends. So your job as an ESG data analyst is to take this scattered, inconsistent, messy data and turn into something meaningful, right? So you have to collect it from multiple teams, clean it to remove errors, validate it with evidence, standardize it with common units, convert into ESG metrics, align it with frameworks like GRI, BRSR, ESRS, SASB, TCFD, etc. and prepare it for audits, assurance and reporting, friends. This is a part of ESG work beginners never learn, but it's the part that decides whether your ESG report is credible, compliant, and audit ready. Hi, I am Chandan Sudip and welcome to part 3 of our ESG Data Analyst series. So far we have covered part 1 where I have discussed about the skills, salary and future scope. Part 2 I have covered mainly the responsibilities that data analyst carries with him. Right? And this is part 3 where I'm trying to give you insights on the data collection methodology. And this is my today's topic to give you a bit of understanding on the data collection. What role ESG analyst plays, what important role the ESG analyst plays on the data collection methodology, friends. So in this video, we go deeper into the real foundation of ESG work, understanding ESG data sources, because once you know where the data comes from, everything else will become easier for you, friends. The tools, the frameworks, the reporting, dashboards, interviews, and real world assignments, everything will look easy for you. But if you understand the data and the data source from where it is coming from. So this is an important video for all the beginners, for all the freshers, for all the young professionals and all the working professionals who want to transit from any other department, any other job role to this particular ESG and sustainability job role, friends. This is very important because data is the basic. You need to understand what kind of data is important for the ESG role, where data is coming from, how to clean the data, what kind of tools required to clean data, right? So these are very important information you should know as a data analyst, friend. So this is an important video. Please be with me throughout the video, friends, and I'll try to clear some of the concepts, some of the important concepts which you should know as a data analyst, friends. So let's try to understand, friends, the different departments involved in ESG data collection, or in other words, what are department you should know as a data analyst, ESG data analyst, from where you need to collect data, right? Or the sources of data. So this is a very important point. You should know, you should understand the department, how it is functioning, and what kind of data you will get from those departments. The first one is the HR department. So all data related to diversity, training, attrition, so all people metrics kind of data you will find from the HR department. HR is one of the biggest contributors to ESG data, friends. They provide you around 25 to 30% of all social metrics data in most ESG frameworks we use. This all comes from the HR department, friends. And when I talk about the key data points, so mainly like the diversity ratios where you find the gender, age, etc., training hours per employee, attrition rate, employee engagement scores, contractual versus permanent workforce which is available within the company, within an organization, friends, anti-harassment training related data. So all these kind of data and many more data on social topics will come from the HR department, friends. So HR is very important for you. You can think of or you can look for the data, right? Now second one is the finance. All ESG budgets, CSR spend, these kind of data where the money is behind sustainability. So all the financial numbers will come from the finance department, right? Finance team will provide you the financial backbone of ESG reporting, friends. So key data points will be around like CSR spends, right? ESG projects, budgets, how much companies spending on the renewables like solar, wind, etc. How much on the waste management, how much on the water cycling. So all these kind of financial numbers which are related to ESG and sustainability on the projects, on the budgets, on the capex, on the opex, all these kind of financial numbers will be coming from the finance department. Even the linked loans, around something like sustainability linked loans or green bonds, all this kind of data, the carbon pricing assumptions what company has and the financial numbers behind the assumption. So all these kind of data will coming from the financial department, friends, right? Then the third one is the EHS, Environmental Health and Safety Department. So all data related to safety incidents, compliances, high risk data, low risk data, all these kind of data will coming from the EHS department. EHS contributes critically safety and compliance metrics data, friends, which is very important to be disclosed by any company. and this is covered by all the frameworks, mainly all the standards, all the frameworks, friends, where you have to disclose the critical EHS policies and the numbers, right? So the key data points will be like the total recordable incident rate, lost time injury frequency rate, all the fatalities been happened within the organization in last 1 year, right? Chemical handling compliances related data, emergency preparedness drills what the company has taken over the year, all kind of data. These all safety related data, health and safety related data, or some point environmental related data also comes from the EHS department, friends, right? Then there is another department which is energy data or energy department, right? Electricity, fuel, renewables, all these kind of energy related data will be coming from the energy department, friends. And the key data points will be around something around 60 to 70% of data which the company reports will come from the energy department, friends, like the energy as a whole data or electricity consumption data, fuel usage data, then again renewable energy and non-renewable energy shares, whatever a company wants to disclose these kind of data, energy intensity data, right? So all these kind of energy related data will be coming from the energy department, which will be further converted, like for example scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions if you want to calculate and disclose. So the backbone is from energy department data, friends. Data will be coming from energy department, which will be later converted into as per the requirement, as per the disclosure, friends, right? So this is a very important department, the energy department, where you need to look for the heavy amount of data as a data analyst, friends. Then there is another department is the procurement department, where you have the supplier sustainability data, right? Mainly for the scope 3 emissions calculation or disclosure, friends. So procurement is responsible for the largest part of ESG data in terms of scope 3 emission data. So if the company is disclosing the scope 3 emission data, it will be heavily depending on the procurement department, friends. The supply ESG ratings, supply emissions, product wise, company wise, sustainability sourcing percentages, vendor compliance on labor environment kind of data, and many more kind of data will be coming from the procurement if the company is disclosing the scope 3 emissions data, friends. So this is a very important department considering the scope 3 emissions disclosure point of view, friends, right? Then there is another department, the CSR, the social impact and community metrics data, where mainly the community impact or social impact on the community kind of data will be coming from the CSR department. So CSR team will provide the quantitative social impact data, friends, right? Like the beneficiaries reached, community development projects, education, health, livelihood programs, impact measurement. So all these kind of data will be coming from the CSR department, friends, right? So this is also an important department as per the data is concerned, friends. The other department will be the admin department, where waste, water, facility operations kind of data, which will not be covered by the individual department. So this will be the like general kind of admin kind of data, which will be coming from the admin department, friends. You can get all these kind of, like for example, the waste generated data, waste recycled data, waste consumption data. So if there is no particular waste department within the company, so all these kind of data will be coming from the admin department, friends. Even the rainwater harvesting data, facility level environmental compliance data. So all these kind of general data, not specific to a department wise, will be coming from the admin department, friends. So this is also an important department in the company where you can look for data. So the other department is the transport department. So a lot of companies will have their own transport department, and some other companies or many companies may not be having a separate transport related department, friends. So this may vary from company to company, right? So if the company has their own transport department, then they will have the logistic emissions data, which will be important for the scope 1 and scope 3 point of view. So these data will be coming from the transport department which the company has. But if the company do not have their separate transport department, maybe it will be coming from the admin department or any other department, friends, the company will have, right? So this may vary from company to company. So all logistic emission related data will be coming from the transport department. Transport teams will provide the fuel and logistic data, like the fleet fuel consumption data, logistic emission data, employee commuting data, business travel emissions data. So all these kind of data will be coming from the transport department, right? Then the IT department also is an important department where you can think of collecting data from, right? So the digital carbon footprint which you talk about, all these kind of data will be coming from the IT department. IT department will provide you data for digital emissions, which is rapidly growing nowadays in ESG area. The data center electricity usage data, cloud computing emission data, device life cycle emission data, e-waste generated data. So all these kind of data, which will be around something around, let's say 8 to 10% of ESG reporting disclosures point of view, friends. So all these kind of important data will be coming from the IT department of an organization or a company, friend, right? So I hope the content was useful to you, friends, being a fresher, being a young professional. If you are into the ESG data analyst job role already, or maybe you're going to have this kind of job role, or you're looking for this kind of job role, hope the content was useful to you to understand the different departments where you need to look into for the data collection point of view as a data analyst, friends. So please comment in the comment section which departments data do you want me to break down in detail. Energy, HR, EHS, finance, or supply chain. Which department you think is important for you to understand more deep dive, and which you want me to prepare the content which will be really useful to you to collect data on that department from that department, friends. So please comment in the comment section and look for the other videos which I am going to prepare in the coming days, friends. So thanks for your time, friends. Thanks for being with me throughout the video. I hope the content was useful to you, meaningful to you, and will help you in the long run, long journey on the ESG front, on the sustainability front, right? It will help you to create your profile, build your profile, and make you more confident enough to face the interviews, friends, as a data analyst job role, friends. So please share the video, do like the video, friends. Comment if you have any inputs for me, any suggestion for me, or if you want to have any kind of thoughts which you want to share with me, please do comment in the comment section, friends. This will help me to connect with you and will be able to understand the kind of audience I have who is watching my videos, right? Please do share the content. Please do share the video with your colleagues, with your friends, whoever you think like this may be useful for them as well. Who wants to transit into sustainability ESG domain, or already into this domain but wants to have more visibility, more kind of thoughts, insights, understanding on the ESG data analyst kind of job role, friends, right? Please do share into any other group you are part of, like the WhatsApp community or WhatsApp group or the LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you feel like on social media. Please do share the video to have more better reach for me, more valuable, viewers for me, friends, because these contents are very useful for building anyone's profile, anybody's career in the long run, friends, long journey, friends, right? Please do share it as much as possible for a better reach of this content of this video, friends. Do subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, friends. This will motivate me to prepare more such videos for you in the coming days, more useful content for you, which will literally help you in not only building your career, also cracking the interviews, getting into any organization, friends. So please subscribe the channel as much as possible. Also to ask your colleagues and friends to subscribe the channel, friends, right? Thanks for your time. See you in the next video, friends. Until then, take care of yourself and keep learning, friends. Bye.